Let's get to the pick of the day. Oh, what a sinkhole.
Check it out. It actually looks like a hole left by a giant meteor. This is actually a sinkhole created by all the heavy rain and flooding in Guatemala,
which swallowed up a 3-story building in Guatemala City.
Sunday night, May 30th, 2010. Guatemala City. Without warning, the ground begins to shudder. A thunderous roar echoes through the rain-soaked streets of Zone 2. In seconds, an entire intersection falls away into darkness, swallowing a 3-story building whole. It felt like an elevator dropping suddenly, one neighbor would later recall, like a lift that stops suddenly, only much stronger. As dust and rain mix in the air, panicked residents stumble outside into the storm. What they find defies belief, a gaping, perfectly circular abyss where the road once stood. The symmetry is terrifying. It doesn't look like a collapse. It looks like a machine has punched a hole through the earth. Shouts pierce the darkness. Rumors spread that a security guard has been swallowed by the collapse.
A massive crater-like sinkhole opened up on Sunday in Guatemala, 3 years after one that appeared that swallowed 3 people.
Rain pours down as first responders arrive, their headlights illuminating the edges of a void that drops into nothingness. Chaos, sirens, a building vanished. This is the story of how the earth opened beneath Guatemala City and revealed the catastrophic consequences of decades of neglect. Guatemala City, May 2010. Guatemala City sprawls across a valley surrounded by volcanic peaks, built on ground that geologists have warned about for decades. The soil beneath the capital isn't solid rock. It's layers of pumice and volcanic ash, deposited over millennia by eruptions. The ground is essentially compacted powder, porous, unstable, prone to erosion. By May 2010, the city of 2 million people was already reeling from disaster. On Thursday, May 27th, Pacaya volcano had erupted just 25 miles south of the capital. The explosion sent ash clouds billowing over the city, blanketing rooftops and streets in gray powder. Residents spent the day shoveling ash from their homes, watching it clog gutters and drains. The volcanic ash was only the beginning. 2 days later, on Saturday, May 29th, Tropical Storm Agatha struck Guatemala with catastrophic force.
Tropical Storm Agatha. At least 150 people have died since Saturday.
The storm dumped over a meter of rain in some areas in less than 48 hours. Streets became rivers. Hillsides collapsed. Across the country, at least 150 people died in floods and landslides. Guatemala City's infrastructure, already strained, was about to face its ultimate test. But this city had seen this nightmare before.
Disaster workers in Guatemala say at least a dozen people are dead and more are missing after Tropical Storm Agatha slammed into its Pacific coast Saturday.
3 years earlier, in February 2007, a massive sinkhole had appeared in a Guatemala City neighborhood, just over a mile from where the 2010 collapse would occur. That hole, nearly 100 meters deep, had swallowed 3 people alive. A father and 2 teenage children vanished into the earth. Their bodies were never recovered. The 2007 sinkhole forced over 1,000 evacuations and prompted dire warnings from geologists.
As bad as this looks, the worst of this situation may be over. Geologists say the rate of growth for this massive sinkhole appears to be slowing.
At a press conference that year, a visibly shaken city engineer had warned, if the aging sewer pipes in this weak ground aren't fixed, more sinkholes will occur. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But those warnings faded from memory. Funding never materialized. Life went on. The pipes remained unfixed. By May 2010, Guatemala City was a ticking time bomb. The only question was when it would explode. May 27, 2010. Thursday afternoon, Pacaya volcano erupts, sending ash raining down on Guatemala City. The gray powder coats everything: cars, buildings, streets. It washes into storm drains and sewers, clogging pipes that were already struggling. Maria Gonzalez sweeps ash from her doorstep in Zone 2, coughing as the fine particles swirl in the air. It got into everything, she would later recall. Your eyes, your throat, the drains. We didn't think about what it was doing underground. But underground, the ash was creating problems no one could see. May 29th to 30th, 2010, the storm arrives. Tropical Storm Agatha makes landfall. Rain hammers the city relentlessly. More than a meter falls in some neighborhoods over the weekend. The water has nowhere to go. Storm drains are clogged with volcanic ash. The rainwater, mixed with mud and debris, begins to overwhelm Guatemala City's antiquated drainage system. Emergency dispatcher Carlos Mendez works a double shift that weekend, fielding call after call. Flooding on 6th Avenue, landslide on Roosevelt, building collapse on Zona 1. The calls don't stop. By Sunday evening, he's exhausted. He doesn't know that the worst call of the night is still coming. Underground, where no one can see, a catastrophe is forming. The city's sewer lines, some dating back decades, were never built to handle this kind of stress. Many were constructed from old volcanic concrete, porous and prone to cracking. Years of deferred maintenance meant leaks went unfixed, cracks widened, and now, with Agatha's torrential rains, the pressure was becoming unbearable. Somewhere beneath Zone 2, deep underground, a major sewer line began to fail. May 30, 2010, Sunday evening. By Sunday, the storm has been battering Guatemala City for more than 24 hours. Emergency crews are overwhelmed. Across the country, bodies are being pulled from mudslides. Entire villages have been cut off by washed-out roads. The death toll climbs past 120, then 150, then higher. In Zone 2, a working-class neighborhood northeast of the city center, residents are exhausted and anxious. The power has been out for hours. Some streetlights flicker weakly on backup generators, casting long shadows across the flooded streets. At the intersection near Parque Ciudad Nueva, a 3-story textile factory sits dark and empty. Its windows are shuttered, its machines silent. The workers are home with their families, waiting for the storm to pass. A small house stands adjacent to the factory, its residents having evacuated hours earlier when water began seeping through the foundation. The streets are deserted. No one sees what's happening underground. For weeks, possibly months, a leak in a main sewer collector has been eroding the volcanic soil beneath the intersection. The pipe, installed decades ago, had developed cracks. At first, the leak was small, a trickle of water escaping through a hairline fracture. But water is patient. Over time, that trickle carved away the pumice and ash surrounding the pipe, grain by grain. The cavity grew. First the size of a car, then a room, then a house, all hidden beneath the street, invisible to everyone walking above. The volcanic soil of Guatemala City is particularly vulnerable to this kind of erosion. Unlike solid bedrock, the compacted powder simply washes away when water flows through it. Engineers call it piping. The soil pipes out through the leak, leaving an empty void behind. By late May 2010, that void beneath the Zone 2 intersection had grown enormous. Only a thin layer of pavement and soil separated it from the surface. That layer was holding, barely. Then Agatha arrived. The sheer volume of water overwhelmed the already damaged pipe completely. Millions of gallons poured through the city's drainage system in hours. The pressure inside the cracked sewer main spiked. Water gushed through the breaks with increasing force, washing away soil at an accelerated rate. The roof of the underground cavity, the street surface itself, was being undermined from below. The weight of the pavement, the buildings, the saturated soil above. It was all too much. At approximately 10 p.m. on May 30th, the structural integrity failed. The ground gave way. The collapsed Pablo Terracina is in his home, 2 blocks from the intersection. When it happens, the entire house shakes violently. Not like an earthquake with its rolling waves, but like something massive has dropped directly beneath him. It's a single sharp jolt, followed immediately by a sound he'll never forget. A deep, rumbling roar, like a freight train passing directly beneath his foundation. The lights go out completely. In the darkness, Terracina hears another sound. A rush of air, a whoosh, like something enormous has been displaced all at once. He runs outside into the rain, his heart hammering. Other neighbors are emerging from their homes, faces pale in the dim glow of flashlights. Someone is shouting, pointing. Terracina follows their gaze down the street toward the intersection. Where the intersection once stood, there is now nothing. A perfectly circular void, roughly 20 meters across, has opened in the earth. The 3-story textile factory has vanished completely. Not collapsed, not destroyed, vanished. Gone, as if it had never existed. The hole is so perfectly round it looks like something from a science fiction film. The walls are nearly vertical, dropping straight down into an abyss so deep that flashlight beams can't reach the bottom. Rain pours into it, streaming down the walls, disappearing into blackness. Teresina stares in disbelief. His mind struggles to process what his eyes are seeing. An entire building has been erased. Other neighbors gather at the edge of the pit, afraid to get too close. The ground near the rim looks unstable. Cracks are spreading outward from the hole. Everyone takes a step back. "Where's the security guard?" Someone shouts into the rain. The question spreads through the crowd like wildfire. The textile factory employed a night watchman. He should have been on duty. Is he down there? Panic spreads. People shout into the void, listening for a response. There's nothing but the sound of rain and falling water. Minutes pass. The crowd grows. 20 people. 30. "I walked across that intersection 2 hours ago," one man says, his voice hollow. First response. The call reaches the fire department at 10:17 p.m. The dispatcher, Carlos Mendez, has been fielding emergency calls all night, but this one makes him pause. "A what?" he asks. "Say that again?" "A hole," the caller says, nearly screaming. "The whole street is gone. There's a hole, a giant hole, and a building fell in." Mendez thinks it's a prank, but he dispatches a unit anyway. When the firefighters arrive at Zone 2, navigating flooded streets in their heavy truck, they think they've got the wrong address. The intersection they're looking for doesn't exist anymore. Lieutenant Ramirez steps out of the truck, and his jaw drops. "Madre de Dios," he whispers. He's seen building collapses, floods, landslides. 20 years with Guatemala City Fire Department. He's seen it all. He's never seen anything like this. The hole is so perfectly round, so geometrically precise, it looks almost artificial, like something carved deliberately into the earth. The walls drop straight down, smooth as if machined. Ramirez approaches the edge carefully, testing each step. He shines his flashlight down into the pit. The beam disappears into darkness. He can't see the bottom. "How deep?" one of his men asks. Ramirez shakes his head. "I don't know. 30 meters? 50? Maybe more." Police arrive next, establishing a perimeter. Yellow caution tape goes up, but it's barely necessary. No one wants to get close to that gaping mouth. Rain continues to fall, streaming down those impossibly smooth walls, disappearing into darkness. "Is anyone down there?" Ramirez asks the crowd. The question hangs in the air. No one knows for sure. Ramirez makes the call. They need engineers, geologists. This isn't a rescue operation they can handle with rope and ladders. One wrong move and the entire edge could collapse. They wait, in the rain, staring into the abyss.
The sinkhole at this intersection in Guatemala City looks like something out of a disaster movie.
May 31st, 2010, Monday morning dawn breaks over Guatemala City to reveal the full scope of the disaster. In daylight, the sinkhole is even more surreal. Photographs taken from above show a perfectly circular crater, its walls smooth and vertical, dropping into darkness. News helicopters circle overhead. By mid-morning, officials confirm the miraculous news. No one was killed. The textile factory had been closed for the weekend. The security guard who normally worked the night shift hadn't been scheduled. The small house next to the factory had been evacuated earlier due to storm flooding.
Meanwhile, a huge sinkhole in Guatemala in Central America has caught the attention.
Against all odds, the collapse had occurred at the exact moment when no one was there. City spokesman Julio Morales addresses the press at 11 a.m. "By the grace of God," he says, his voice shaking slightly, "no lives were lost in this incident." But relief is tempered by terror. Within hours, authorities order the evacuation of approximately 150 families within a 100-meter radius of the sinkhole. Hundreds of people abandon their homes, uncertain if they'll ever return. Maria Gonzalez, who'd been sweeping ash from her doorstep just days earlier, carries a small suitcase out of her house. "I can't stay here," she tells a reporter. "How do I know the ground under my house isn't hollow too?" The investigation begins. By late morning, Guatemala's top disaster officials arrive at the site.
Geologists say its shape suggests a cave formation underneath.
They bring geologists from the National Institute of Seismology, engineers with ground-penetrating radar. But even they stop and stare when they see this one. Dr. David Monteroso, a geophysicist with Conrad, walks the perimeter. He's studied the 2007 sinkhole. He knows what to look for. His team begins scanning with ground-penetrating radar. What they find is alarming. The hole sits directly over a main stormwater collector, a large underground drainage tunnel built decades ago from volcanic concrete. The tunnel had cracked. Water had been leaking through the breaks for months, possibly years, eroding the loose volcanic soil around it. On June 3rd, Monterroso holds a press conference. His face is grim. It's evident, he says, choosing his words carefully.
A massive sinkhole that opened up in the middle of Guatemala's capital city.
And everyone knows it. The human factor. Within days, experts deliver their verdict. This disaster was not an act of God. Dr. Sam Bonus, a Dartmouth-trained geologist who has lived in Guatemala for decades, is blunt in his assessment. He arrives at the sinkhole site on June 2nd, brought in as a consultant. He looks at the hole. He looks at the soil samples. He reads the ground-penetrating radar data. Then he tells reporters exactly what they don't want to hear.
Local experts say that because of a lack of maintenance, the drainage system...
Calling it a sinkhole is misleading, Bonus says, his tone sharp. Sinkholes have natural causes: limestone dissolution, cave collapses, natural processes. But this? He gestures at the pit. This one was mainly artificial, man-made. Bonus explains that Guatemala City's infrastructure has been in crisis for decades. Old sewer lines, poorly maintained and built through unstable volcanic deposits, were a known hazard. We wrote a report after the 2007 sinkhole, Bonus says, his frustration evident. We warned that more would occur if the pipes weren't repaired. The government received the report. They acknowledged it. Then nothing happened. No funding, no repairs, nothing. He pauses, looking at the cameras. This collapse was a sadly predictable outcome. The connection to 2007. The investigation reveals another disturbing truth.
Yeah, we're told Hillsborough Fire Rescue put a camera as well as some listening devices.
Both holes were nearly identical, perfectly round, caused by sewer line failures, triggered by heavy rains. Both occurred in Zone 2, less than 2 kilometers apart. In 2007, a burst sewer collector 30 meters underground had caused that collapse. 3 people had died. Their bodies, never recovered, remain entombed beneath Guatemala City. Geologist Sam Bonus had co-authored that 2007 report. He'd laid out exactly what needed to be done. He'd warned what would happen if nothing was done. Now, 3 years later, he's standing at another hole, watching the same nightmare repeat itself. The only difference this time, Bonus says quietly, is that no one died. We got lucky, but luck runs out. Filling the void, engineers face a daunting challenge. How do you fill a hole 30 stories deep? The government's plan is to pump the pit with a slurry mixture of cement, water, and dirt. This technique had successfully filled the 2007 sinkhole, though it had taken months. The process begins in June 2010. Cement trucks line up at the site. Pumps work around the clock. Progress is slow. The void is massive. Civil engineer Roberto Hernandez warns that simply filling the hole with solid material might redirect groundwater and cause future collapses elsewhere. You're treating the symptom, not the disease, he tells officials. By late 2011, the sinkhole is finally filled, but the underlying problems remain unsolved. Further discoveries, but the radar scans revealed a darker truth. The 2010 hole wasn't an accident, it was a symptom. Scans show additional cavities and weak points throughout Zone 2's underground network. Pockets of groundwater, hidden voids, cracked pipes. Dr. Monterroso reviews the data with growing alarm. We found at least 6 other potential collapse zones, he tells his team. Any one of them could go at any time. Guatemala City is riddled with time bombs. The sinkhole may not have killed anyone directly, but it left deep psychological scars. For residents of Zone 2, the disaster shattered their sense of security. The ground beneath their feet, something they'd taken for granted their entire lives, had proven unreliable. Families spent nights in emergency shelters, too afraid to sleep in their own homes. Children had nightmares about holes opening beneath their beds. Psychologist Dr. Elena Vasquez volunteered at the evacuation centers. Parents would put their children to bed, then lie awake all night listening, she recalls. Listening for that rumbling sound, terrified the ground would open beneath them. Under normal circumstances, security guard Jorge Ramirez would have been working the night shift at the textile factory when it collapsed. But he'd called in sick that weekend. When he learned what happened, he broke down crying. I should have been there, he told his family. Had he been there, he almost certainly would have died. His body entombed 90 meters underground, unreachable, unrecoverable. Gracias a Dios, families whispered in church services the following week. Thank God. But gratitude was mixed with anger. At a public meeting in June, resident Carmen Ortiz confronted city officials. "How many warnings do we need?" she demanded, her voice shaking with emotion. "In 2007, 3 people died and we got promises. Now we get another hole and more promises. When will something actually change?" The government used the international attention to plead for help. President Alvaro Colom appealed for foreign aid to upgrade Guatemala's infrastructure. Some funding materialized. The World Bank provided loans for sewer repairs. Monitoring programs were established, but change came slowly. Geologist Sam Bonis, reflecting years later, put it simply, "Nature often exposes the problems we ignore. The ground doesn't lie."
By residents who have no other place to go.
When we fail to maintain our infrastructure, eventually, the Earth itself reveals our negligence. The 2010 sinkhole revealed something else: the power of timing, chance, and luck. In a disaster that could have killed dozens, 0 people died. But that luck won't hold forever. As Bonis warns, Guatemala City sits on unstable ground, riddled with aging pipes. Unless comprehensive repairs are made, another collapse is inevitable. The only question is when, and whether anyone will be standing on top of it when it happens. Today, that image remains, a perfect circle of darkness, dropping 30 stories into the earth, edges so clean they look machine-cut. It's become a symbol, not just of natural disasters, but of human failure. A monument to neglect. Maria Gonzalez moved to a different neighborhood. She couldn't bear to walk past the intersection anymore. "Every time I see a crack in the sidewalk now," she says, "I wonder what's underneath. I wonder if it's hollow. I wonder when it will collapse." Because they learned something profound on that rainy Sunday night in May 2010. The ground beneath your feet is not as solid as you think. And when decades of warnings go unheeded, when pipes leak and no one fixes them, when infrastructure crumbles and no one cares, eventually, the earth opens up and swallows everything whole. Pay attention to what's beneath the surface. Fix what's broken before it's too late. Or one day, without warning, the ground may simply collapse beneath you.